Before you listen, if you enjoy the stories and want to hear more, then please consider subscribing. Most of you listening aren't subscribed, so please take this time to subscribe. Turn on notifications so you'll never miss a story and be the first to hear. You'll also be supporting me. Thank you. I was completely devastated to come home from work and find my front door had been kicked in, and my house totally ransacked. The thieves had taken everything of value: my laptop, TV, jewelry, and even my beloved gaming console, a customized Xbox I had spent so much time and money modifying with cool features and upgrades. The sense of violation I felt knowing strangers had completely invaded my personal space and stolen my most prized possessions was overwhelming. The police came to take a report, but warned me the chances of recovering my stolen items were very slim. I'd likely have to seek out replacements for everything. At least I had renter's insurance to help cover some of the costs. But money couldn't replace the sentimental value of my tricked-out Xbox, or the time I had invested customizing it. Over the next several days, I scoured local pawn shops within a 25-mile radius, hoping to spot my stolen goods. But I had no luck whatsoever. It seemed the thieves were smarter than trying to hawk the unique, easily identifiable items locally. As a last resort, I turned to browsing Facebook Marketplace to see if the thieves were brazen enough to try selling my stuff online. I had little hope of finding anything, but looking through the electronics listings just felt like something proactive to do. I casually scrolled through, fully expecting not to recognize anything. Then suddenly, a new listing appeared advertising an Xbox gaming console for sale at a ridiculously low price, a third of what it was worth. In the photos, it looked to be in pristine condition, listed as like new, barely used. I stared closely at the images. Something about it seemed very familiar. That little scratch on the front right corner and the pale smudge mark on the middle button. Could it be? My pulse started racing as I looked closer. This was my Xbox for sale. Unbelievable that these thieves were greedy and bold enough to try selling it online. A tidal wave of anger, adrenaline, and excitement surged through me. Every fiber of my being wanted to message the sellers, claim I was interested in their ad, and set up a meetup just so I could confront the criminals face to face. But I knew realistically that idea was far too risky. These people were dangerous and I didn't want to put myself in harm's way. Then it dawned on me: the police. If I coordinated with law enforcement, we could set up a sting operation to catch the thieves red-handed. I felt a glimmer of hope that I could get justice and my Xbox back after all. Hands shaking with adrenaline, I emailed the detective who had taken my initial robbery report. I explained I had very strong reason to believe my stolen gaming console had been posted for sale online, and I wanted to help set up a meetup with the sellers so the police could arrest them. Surely the detective would be eager to assist, since this could help catch dangerous criminals targeting others in the community too. The next day, the detective called me back, intrigued by my tip-off and open to coordinating a sting. But he cautioned me not to get my hopes up too high in case something fell through. I promised to follow his directions exactly, while trying to remain optimistic that this would work. We strategized over the phone and agreed I would message the sellers posing as an eager buyer. I claimed I needed it urgently for my son's birthday tomorrow and was willing to pay cash and pick up immediately if they could meet that same day. Meanwhile, I'd provide the meeting location so the detective could stealthily arrange officers to surveil and be waiting to make arrests. Pulse racing, I crafted my message to the sellers emphasizing I was a single dad desperate to get this Xbox today, no matter what, and could meet anytime, anywhere. My hands trembled as I hit send, hardly believing this was really happening. To my immense relief, they responded right away and agreed to meet that very afternoon in the parking lot of a large grocery store. I quickly forwarded the details to the detective so he could mobilize units. As the agreed meetup time neared, I waited anxiously in my car parked near the back of the large grocery store lot. I kept scanning for any plainclothes officers staking out the area, but saw none. Right on time, a bee upset and pulled in and parked along the far edge of the lot. Had to be them. My breath caught as I sank down in my seat, watching intently as the driver and passenger emerged to stand by their trunk, heads whipping around looking for me. Suddenly, two unmarked police cars rolled in quietly and boxed in the set-in from behind before flashing their lights. 4 detectives jumped out shouting, "Police, don't move." The sellers froze, looking confused and terrified. The lead detective frisked them, cupped their hands behind their backs, and read them their rights. I couldn't believe this was actually happening. The detective waved me over and opened the trunk to reveal my beloved gaming console sitting right there. I described the unique scratch and smudge for confirmation this was in fact mine. The detective congratulated me for assisting them in catching wanted criminals targeting multiple homes in the area. I drove home elated with my cherished Xbox safely returned. This traumatic ordeal was finally over thanks to the power of social media. It just goes to show criminals aren't too bright if they try hawking stolen goods online, but they definitely met their match this time. My old laptop had died a sudden death, so I've been browsing Facebook Marketplace constantly trying to find a used replacement within my limited budget. I didn't have much to spend, so I knew I needed to find a great deal on something decent quality. After a few days of unsuccessful searching, a new listing popped up that immediately caught my eye. A MacBook Pro offered for the unbelievably low price of just $250. That was insanely cheap for that model in good condition. I was instantly suspicious. From the photos alone, the laptop looked to be in pristine, almost brand new shape. Maybe the seller simply didn't realize the true value of what they had. Still, something seemed off. I messaged the seller, Joe, asking if the MacBook was still available. He responded right away saying yes, it was still for sale. But he seemed very overly eager to get rid of it extremely fast. Joe explained in multiple messages that he had just recently upgraded to a newer laptop model, so now he was urgently trying to quickly get this old one off his hands as soon as humanly possible. He emphasized several times that he was in a rush and wanted it gone immediately no matter what. Joe's extreme urgency made me pause and become even more wary about this whole thing. But $250 for a used MacBook Pro in seemingly decent condition based on his photos was an unbelievable price I couldn't pass up. I reasoned that maybe he sincerely just wanted fast cash and didn't realize the true higher value of the laptop. Against my better judgment, we made plans to meet that very same afternoon in the parking lot of a large grocery store to complete the exchange. I arrived 15 minutes early and intentionally parked right near the front entrance, so we'd be conducting business in a high-traffic, very public area with plenty of witnesses. Joe had instructed me to meet him specifically by the cart return area, which immediately struck me as an odd and strangely isolated location for an online sale between strangers. I felt increasingly uneasy about the whole setup, but tried to convince myself I was just being paranoid. Surely nothing bad could happen in broad daylight in such a busy spot, right? I got out of my car and scanned the crowded lot, looking for anyone who appeared to be waiting for someone to arrive. As I approached the cart return, a man leaning against a red SUV kept glancing around nervously. I wondered, could this be Joe? He caught my eye. I cautiously walked up and asked if he was Joe. He simply nodded and popped his trunk to reveal the MacBook sitting inside, exactly like the one in his photos. My guard immediately went up when Joe suggested we conduct our transaction inside his tinted SUV instead of out in the open. His body language and evasive eyes radiated something ominous, but I stayed cool and politely declined, picking up the laptop to inspect it more closely on the spot. That's when I noticed Joe's eyes darken menacingly. Before I could react, he suddenly snatched the laptop out of my hands and stepped way too far into my personal space, looming over me threateningly. It dawned on me then this was a setup. Joe never intended to actually sell to me. He was going to mug me for cash and take off with the laptop. My heart dropped as he glowered down at me, demanding I empty my wallet right now or he'd hurt me. Thinking fast, I used all my strength to throw my shoulder into him, shoving him hard against the side of the SUV. As Joe stumbled back in surprise, I didn't hesitate. I immediately spun around and sprinted away, weaving between parked cars toward the crowd near the grocery store entrance. My heart felt like it was jackhammering out of my chest as I ran. I didn't dare look back to see if Joe was pursuing me. I just focused on getting to safety inside the store, hearing nothing but the sound of my labored breathing and pounding pulse ringing in my ears. I rushed in through the automatic doors and made a beeline for the customer service desk, shaking badly and struggling to speak between panicked breaths. I frantically explained to the clerk what had just happened outside and pleaded for them to call the police immediately. She quickly dialed 911 and handed me the phone to provide a statement. Within 10 minutes, an officer arrived and I shakily recounted everything. He took down my info and got a description of Joe and his vehicle. The officer said they would circulate an alert for him right away. He strongly urged me to never try to buy anything in person from strangers online again. I fervently promised him I had learned my lesson. No more Facebook Marketplace deals ever again. The officer stayed with me until the adrenaline wore off and I stopped trembling uncontrollably. I was still reeling from how close of a call this was. If I hadn't listened to my instincts and reacted so quickly, who knows what Joe could have done to me. In the following weeks, I remained incredibly jittery and paranoid anytime I left home, constantly scanning for any sign of Joe. I was convinced he would track me down and try to get revenge. But several months have passed now without incident, so hopefully he moved on to easier targets. After buying a brand new 65-inch smart TV, I decided to sell my used 55-inch television on Facebook Marketplace. Since it was only a couple years old and still in flawless condition without any scratches or damage, I posted it for $250. I thought that was a very fair asking price for a nice Samsung Smart TV. I included several clear, high-quality photos showcasing the TV working perfectly from all angles so potential buyers could really see the flawless condition it was in. The images showed off the pristine, scratch-free HE screen, as well as the unblemished black plastic casing from the front, back, and sides. I wanted to fully demonstrate the great care I had taken to keep this TV in mint shape while I owned it. Within just a day of the listing being posted, I received an inquiry from a man named Evan asking if I would take any less than the $250 asking price I had set. In a polite, well-worded message, I responded explaining that $250 truly was already an incredibly reasonable price for a nice 55 Samsung Smart TV like this one, especially given its near-perfect condition. So unfortunately, I would not be able to go any lower on the price. Evan wrote back saying that he completely understood where I was coming from on the firm price. He explained he was still very interested in seeing the TV for himself in person to verify it was truly as immaculately clean and functional as it appeared in all of my photographs. He asked if it would be possible to stop by that very evening after he finished work around 7 p.m. or so to take a closer look and ensure it would meet his needs before committing to purchase. I was thrilled to hear he still wanted to come inspect it despite my unwillingness to budge on price. I gave Evan my exact address and encouraged him to come on by around 7 p.m. as he had proposed. I mentioned I would have it all plugged in and ready for him to view. I was confident that once Evan saw the TV fully demonstrated up close and personal, he would agree that my firm asking price was more than fair for the exceptional condition it was being offered in. Right on time, Evan arrived to inspect the TV. I showed him all the features and let him examine every inch closely. After declaring it was exactly the large, high-quality smart TV he was searching for, he again tried to negotiate on the price. Evan pointed out some faint cosmetic scuffs on the back plastic casing that didn't affect the function at all. But because of these minor flaws, he said he couldn't do $250 and offered $200 instead. I politely but firmly reiterated that $250 was truly the lowest I could go. Evan acted very disappointed, but said he understood and would think on it. First thing the very next morning, I was surprised to get a message from Evan saying he had decided to pay the full $250 asking price after all. I was thrilled to have it sold and thanked him for understanding about not going lower on such a fairly priced item. We arranged for him to come pick it up that afternoon and complete the payment transaction. Right on schedule, Evan arrived with a small dolly to transport the large TV. I helped him carefully load it into his SUV, and then he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a sealed envelope stuffed full of cash. In my eagerness to see the TV go to a new home, I didn't even think to cautiously count the money on the spot. I naively trusted that Evan was handing me $250 inside. We said our goodbyes and he drove off with a smile, clearly very satisfied with his new purchase. Later that evening, I finally got around to opening the stuffed envelope to deposit the cash into my bank account. But as I slowly thumbed through the stack of bills, I froze. Something seemed off. The money didn't have the right look or feel. I examined the cash closely under good lighting and realized to my horror that over half the bills were expert counterfeits. Evan had paid me with a huge portion of convincing fake money. My stomach dropped with the sickening realization that I had just been scammed out of $125 that I was depending on. In hindsight, I realized I should have been much more wary when Evan repeatedly tried to negotiate down the firm asking price I had set. He likely wanted to pay less so the fake cash would cover the total dollar amount. When I refused to budge on the price, he resorted to this dishonest tactic instead. I immediately tried contacting Evan, but quickly saw that he had blocked me everywhere. I filed a report with the police, but they informed me that catching the perpetrator would be nearly impossible without any substantial identifying details. All I could really do was take this as a very harsh lesson to always fully inspect payment before completing a sale, no exceptions. From then on, I started arranging meetings only at police stations, figuring criminals would be deterred from trying anything there. And I invested in a counterfeit detector pen to test bills on the spot instead of taking someone's word for it. It pained me deeply that my overly trusting nature had been exploited for profit by someone so dishonest. But at least now I was far wiser about thoroughly verifying payment during online marketplace sale meetings. I never wanted to blindly accept sketchy money and have the rug pulled out from under me like that again.
Thanks for listening in. If you like these stories and want to hear more, then please subscribe and like and support this new channel. We have more stories for you to listen to.